Hello everyone, D here, and welcome to our dive into the new Disney Plus series, Hawkeye. Oh, very excited about this. 2 episodes to start off with, so much to go into. Luckily, I have some of the best people to discuss these things with, part of the Marvel game we have had all year, and now co-hosting with me for this entire run of the Hawkeye series, we have the man up here on top from Smirking Gun Reviews. It's Rob Stone.
Formerly Smirking Gun Reviews. Now it's just Smirking Reviews. We dropped the gun. We lost the gun. Maybe I should have put Smirking Arrow Reviews. I don't know. But I am super excited to be back here as always. It's been a little while. It's been a minute. Everybody's been doing other things. We've all been taking care of stuff and waiting for the next opportunity. And here we are. It's almost Christmas time. We're at Thanksgiving literally, and it's time to talk Hawkeye as we approach the end of this year and go into the Book of Boba Fett after this. So it's going to be a fun ride on this channel for a while. So tune in, folks. We got some fun stuff for you. So take it down here to the super fan.
Hey.
Corrie.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. I can say my review skills are better than my archery skills. There's a reason I'm not in purple with a bow and arrow. Not my strong point.
I have hit targets before, but usually not the center. I have to be honest.
Yeah, I could say I've tried to hit targets. Maybe I hit targets, but they weren't the ones I was aiming for. So, yeah.
Excellent. And I want to be sure to welcome everybody who is joining us live. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone joining us live here in the U.S., to everyone else in the world. Happy Thursday or Friday, depending on your particular time zone. Also, you know, I always want to give out a big shout out to Silva Surfer here in the chat. Always here live. In fact, we've been chatting back and forth. Wasn't even super excited about the show, but wasn't going to miss our discussion. So that is a fan. You're always here, Silva, and I just want to be sure to give you a big thanks. We also have the boy Ida joining us here live as well, and Jack Dubs jumped in earlier today to leave some notes. Also not super thrilled with Hawkeye, but hopefully with our discussion, maybe we'll find a different appreciation of things. We'll see how that works out. So let's dive into this right away. We've got a lot to discuss, and we're going to have Rob give us a brief little summation, a little short of these episodes, so we don't spend a whole lot of time rehashing this throughout our discussion. So, Rob, why don't you kick things off for us here with our little highlights, our little summation of episodes 1 and 2, Never Meet Your Heroes, and Hide and Seek.
Okay, so I promise this isn't going to be Micro Machine style, but it is going to be kind of coming at you. So during the events of the first Avengers movie back in 2012, Kate Bishop witnesses the attack on New York and sees her hero Hawkeye save her life at the last minute. But in doing so, we also find out that in the attack, her father dies presumably. We go to the funeral, but in the credits, I like how they did this. They showed her training. We get all that stuff so that we learn what Kate Bishop has been up to during the course of the time between 2012 and present day. Meanwhile, poor Clint Barton, still reeling after the events of Avengers Endgame, is trying to have a great family Christmas in New York by taking his kids to Rogers the Musical, where he gets to relive the awesomeness of his life the past few years and the losses and the joys of being a superhero. Clint being the kind of hero who doesn't really like the spotlight but has to acknowledge the part he played. Then we have Kate Bishop, who is young and freewheeling and crashing bell towers at school and ending up getting kicked out basically for her responsibilities not being taken very well there. Her mother, though, has got a surprise for her waiting at home. No, it's not a pony. It's a new romantic interest that is not her father. And it just happens to be Lalo from Better Call Saul, also known as Jack on this show. So we've got that potential difficulty headed for old Kate. But they also know how to party. So they take her to a fundraiser, and that's where we meet Armand and Armand the Seventh, and who tells Kate that some information that she didn't know, which is her mother and Jack are engaged. But before she can do anything about that, she witnesses Armand and her mother having an argument, which leads her to follow Armand to a black market auction below the place where Jack is also at. And it turns out that they're betting on the Ronin sword and the Ronin suit, amongst other crazy things. But before she can get out of there, because she's spotted for being a fake waiter at this auction, the tracksuit mafia explode into action to rob the place, and they're looking for a watch. What does this watch have to do with anything? I have no idea. But we'll find out, hopefully, as she narrowly escapes wearing the Ronin suit and goes after the pizza dog that she saw earlier, who was attacking one of the tracksuit mafia. She could have stopped and gotten the watch, but she didn't know it was there, I guess. So then she's spotted on the news, which leads Clint to see her there and goes, oh man, who's dressed up like Ronin? I made a lot of enemies. So he has to break up his Christmas vacation with his kids to go find the person who's going to get themselves killed wearing the suit that he was using to kill crime bosses all over the world. And when he finds out it's a girl, he realizes, oh gosh, this is just a kid, and now I have to save her life because what I did caused so many problems. I can't just leave her here to die. But the tracksuit mafia have already found her. And even though they try to get the suit back, it ends up her house is in flames, and he has to go find a LARPer that stole the suit. Meanwhile, she has to have an awkward dinner with Jack and her mother that turns into a fencing fight, which was a pretty interesting way to find out that Jack knows a lot more about swordplay than he's letting on. And then poor Hawkeye has to face the LARPers to get his Ronin suit back. After all is said and done, he gets his suit back from the LARPers, but then they are both captured and taken before a new enemy that is leading the tracksuit mafia, a new to be villain / hero that is just being introduced to the MCU, known as Echo.
Big reveal next week, but we're all very excited.
Well done.
Yay! Perfect summation. All right, so that's our brief summary of the first 2 episodes, which of course you all know because you have watched the episodes. That's why you're enjoying this spoiler-free discussion, which I should have mentioned before we just discussed the entire history of these first 2 episodes. But hey,
Oops.
It's Thanksgiving. I'm still digesting things and slowly waking back up. So let's dive into things real quick. Corrie, what did you think of these first 2 episodes? Let's not go too deep into anything. It's just kind of like over the top. What were your big impressions of this show? And maybe even a little bit of what would you think about Hawkeye coming into this and then from the show here?
In general, I liked the show. I think I knew that they were going to take some time to set up the storyline. So I wasn't expecting the first episode to be, a banger right out of the gate. I didn't expect it to be perfect. I was surprised that we really don't see Hawkeye that much in episode 1. I mean, he doesn't even meet Kate until the last bit of the episode. And then he's like, who are you? And she's like, oh my word, you're Hawkeye. Cut, end of episode. So, yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more of him in the first episode, but I understand they're also trying to build up her character first before we follow her into her adventures. I liked it. I loved, as what Rob was saying about the credits, I love how they gave so much backstory in such a short period of time, just with those images of, Kate as a little girl trying to learn archery and not hitting the bullseye. And then the next icon is her hitting it all. And then she's getting all these awards. And the whole time you're seeing her father's picture in the background of the awards case. And that never really changes. So that was neat. I loved seeing more of Clint with his family. I think that's what I like the most. And Kate had made a comment about, people don't want just superheroes now. They really want someone who is sincere and genuine and like a good person and all the things that Clint is naturally just as a guy and as a dad. And so I liked that we got to see more of his family life beyond what we saw like in the films. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it was funny, but I felt bad for the fact that everything was just going wrong for Clint. It's like he can't catch a break. He's constantly there's constantly issues. The people don't even recognize him. That one scene with the kid is like, "Oh, Mom, it's a superhero. Do you want to go say hi?" And the kid runs right by Clint to the costumed people. And it's not even Hawkeye. He's like, "No, that's Katniss Everdeen." Like just the fact that he can't catch a break. And so I love seeing those elements. I think Clint does really well as a character when he's kind of the underdog and he's just trying to get something simple and struggling his whole way through. I think that's kind of his modus operandi. So I love that. And I guess the last comment I would make, even though the musical was a little bit campy, and we expected that, I liked what they did with it in the brief little serious moments where, he's watching Black Widow or the actress portraying Black Widow, and they totally cut out the sound. And they use that in two different ways. Firstly, to show that he's totally zoned out, and the one thing he's focused on is Black Widow, which of course means that he's being forced to relive a horrible day, which was the attack on the Avengers Tower. And on top of that, he's being forced to remember that, Nat's not there. And also we learn that he has hearing aids. And so he's turned the hearing aids off, which also is linked with like the sound dissipating. So I thought that was really neat. We learn a bit of the risk of what he's been doing for the past few years, all these explosions and crashing through buildings and things blowing up, and like he's losing his hearing because of it. And we didn't see that previously in the films. And what else? Oh, and I loved the moments we had with his daughter. I really appreciated how, not mature, but how in tune she is with what's going on with her dad. Like the other kids are just there to have fun, and she's the one who's almost being like a mother, where she's like, "Are you okay? What's going on? Do we need to be worried?" And when he steps out of the theater, she goes after him to try to figure out why he left. And she has that line where she says, "It's fine if you don't want to watch the show. Everybody misses her, but she was your best friend." So yeah. I really liked those. I think those were my favorite ones.
Yeah, the family dynamic on those, I think, worked really well. Yeah, I gotta say, I think you kind of hit a really nice point there with those the moment inside the musical when we have that kind of quiet moment with Clint, because I think the thing that, before we go into too deep into those things, I think the thing that worked really well for me for this show is it felt more contained. It felt more personal. It felt more quiet, even though they're moving around New York, and even though there are all these things happening. Because a storytelling style is a little more lighthearted, we're accepting some of these moves a little bit more, that it's having these little quieter moments. I don't know. It felt like the most grounded story that we've had from the MCU. And I have to say, I really enjoyed how it was told. I love Kate's introduction. I love the credit scenes. I loved how we are seeing Clint's reaction to having been an Avenger and now trying to move on with his family. all of these dynamics for me, I think, worked really well. And I have to say, I did. I ended up enjoying this much more than I thought that I would. And I really can't wait to get into a lot more of the specific stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It really felt a little bit just more personal and quiet, and not having these giant stakes.
Yeah.
Okay. The villain is the tracksuit mafia. They even joke about that it's the tracksuit mafia, Russians saying bro all the time. This isn't a big thing. This isn't world changing events. This isn't like, a universe about to be fractured.
Yeah.
This is, oh my God, I've got to contain this thing before it blows up. And that's really the feel to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to get off into even just more of this, but Rob, why don't you jump in there before I wander off? What were your thoughts here on the on our first two episodes? And again, coming in with Hawkeye, and what were you expecting?
Well, first I want to just say hey to the Rich Room and Wes.
Yes.
For jumping in here. Wes, dude. All right, good to see you all here. All right, so I had a hard time with this one initially because I had to really, like I was telling you before the show, I had to kind of rewire my thought processes on this because I wasn't really enjoying it that much. I really I liked both the main actors. I think Hailee Steinfeld is one of the best actresses in the last 20 years. I can't believe she's still young. The way she's been acting in movies like True Grit, so far above her years in that film that I was like, how is she not like 40 right now? When really she just was playing so much older back then that it blows my mind the range of this actress. And Jeremy Renner, I told you before, I know everybody loves Robert Downey Jr. As an actor, but Renner is my favorite actor in the group of Initial Avengers. And he is, I really like the character of Hawkeye because he had me completely won over in Ultron when he's like, I'm just a guy with a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense. Like, I don't know what I'm, you know what I mean? Like that kind of just that accepting of like the situation and who he is kind of character and still fighting. But so when I liked the lower stakes, but my problem was just the whole tone of the whole thing at first. And then I realized this is literally a holiday movie.
Yeah.
And I don't mean because it's set during the holidays. The entire tone of this thing, minus the fight scenes that happen in every comic book, this has all the things, all the makings, all the beats of a holiday movie, and the tone, the feel of it. I felt like I was like at a movie watching like a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. You get that feeling. You almost get like a chill, like a cold feeling when you watch one of these kind of movies. Like it's like wintertime in your house a little bit. Like you're like, oh, you're like a nice warm blanket. But like the whole thing with like the being in New York at Christmas time, the musical, the LARPing, all the things that were happening in it that had the makings of like where Clint had to do things that felt like a guy trying to get home for Christmas.
Yeah, which is what he's doing.
Like planes, trains, and automobiles. Having to go, oh God, I got to do this now, and then I got to do this now. It wasn't your typical story in an MCU film or television series at all. He really is just the guy trying to get home. And now he has to deal with all these outside problems and then one very serious problem that he caused. And so once I got my head there and was able to go, okay, I can watch it like as long as I watch it like this, because I was ready to just pick this thing apart. And now I really do like it now that I understand what it's going for. Because I did the parts with Kate Bishop being like where Hawkeye's not really in this. I mean, I hate to break it to everybody if you don't already know this, but it's the death knell for the Avengers, the original Avengers, has been rung. And this is just another way to out with the old and with the new. Right. Whether you like it or not, hardcore comic fans, Clint Barton will always be your Hawkeye, and that's fine. But for the MCU, they're moving on. What they'll do once these characters age out, I don't know. Maybe it's reboot time. But this is really Kate Bishop's show. And it's her introduction. And so we have to be introduced to her and then introduce Hawkeye. He's going to be literally, this is another pass the torch movie, kind of like Black Widow was. And so, there's going to be people that have problems with that because they just can't let go of the comic book universe and the MCU universe. I'm fine with it. I've decided that this is just how it's going to be. And if I don't want to watch something, I won't watch it, but I'm here for this because like you said, street level, I like this low stakes, but still plenty of surprises to come. Plus again, Lalo from freaking Better Call Saul is in this. Okay. And the guy oozes charm and menace like nobody's business. Plus the fact that we don't know what anybody really is in this. Is her dad even dead? Who knows? What's up with her mom? What's up with all the Armands? There's so much to like about this once I got my head straight. So that's what I think initially. Yeah. Anyway.
Did the mom murder the dad? Is like, what happened?
Pushed him in front of a missile. Just
I don't know. I mean, the building was already falling apart, so right. And it seems like they're setting up Jack to take the fall because he's the sword guy. Armand is killed with a sword. She sees he hands her the candy. So I feel like that's just too nicely wrapped up in a box with a bow. I'm going. He's too obviously the bad guy, so it's got to be somebody else.
It does sort of have that feel. Rob, I think you totally hit the nail on the head. It's a holiday movie, and it's exactly that kind of warm good. There are challenges, but they're not too much, but still stuff that you have to do, complications, and now it's gone. Oh, the number got out. Dun, dun, dun. But it's still, they still kept it, I think, nicely grounded with showing the effects of being an Avenger on Clint and all of those things. So let's get into our big character stuff because I know that we're going to end up spending a bit of time on that. Let's start with Kate Bishop. Now, I've got to say, coming in, I don't know much about Kate. I didn't know much about Kate Bishop. I knew people were very excited about her appearing, but from the comic, this is sort of where we're running in the zones that I don't have familiarity. On the other hand, I'm also not married to any particular idea. So fresh coming into this, I'll get into mine in a minute, but Rob, let's kick things off with you. What did you think of our Kate Bishop? I mean, Hailee Steinfeld, doing anything is awesome. But what about Kate here specifically?
Yeah, I'm like, see, normally I'm the comic book guy. I'm the guy who's got Hawkeye number 13, with Kate Bishop on the, it's classic cover from Matt Fraction, one of the best runs of Hawkeye ever. But I don't know that much about Kate Bishop, to be honest with you. She's one of the few that she came out when I was out of comics. And since I've been back, I have not gone back to really look into her. Because again, personal taste, Clint Barton's my Hawkeye. I have no problem with Kate Bishop being there. So for me, this is more about Hailee Steinfeld and her performance of her. I know enough about Kate Bishop to know that she's playing her incredibly well. I think she's got her nailed. And I love that while she is a rich girl, who again, there's always the loss of a parent in one of these kind of stories. Usually it's the mom, so they took out the dad for a change.
We'll switch up.
I really liked her playfulness. She's smart, she's capable, but she's still a kid.
Yeah.
And she does things without thinking, and she's a fan, but she's also been preparing for this. She's not going to let anything else happen to her family. Hence all the things that she's been doing. This hasn't just been because she saw Hawkeye and thought, oh, I like bows and arrows. No, she's doing this to be something more than what she is. And I don't even know if she fully realizes that. I think she's fully realizing it here. I mean, she says at the beginning, you know, sometimes you have to dress the part, but it's more like she's still having fun, you know, but she's working towards something. And I like the way that they're just gradually letting her slowly become who she's going to become. And she's not overly fangirling too much for me on Hawkeye when they meet. I just, it's her natural charm and charisma as an actress that is, for me, holding this character together. It has nothing to do with anything that has to do with the comics. If this was a lesser actress, if this was like a CW level actress, no offense, CW actresses, but this would be killed. This would be horrible. This would be overacted, cheesy acted, soap opera acted. And instead you got like an Oscar nominee, you know? Again, just showing the pedigree that and the fact that she was willing to do it. I mean, I know she's young and she's game and she's done things like Bumblebee, but she's also done stuff about Emily Dickinson. This girl's smart. One of her first things was working with the Coen brothers. So it's like, you know, we've got two really high class actors in a silly holiday movie for the MCU. And I'm really happy now with where they're going with, you know, I don't mind so much that Clint is going to take a back seat in future stuff. I don't think he's going to be gone, but I'm more excited for the future of this version of the character now than when I first heard about this.
Awesome. Jumping in here real quick, want to say hi to Mark from Enchantment of Eternity dropping in. Babaro also saying hi. We've got a nice little group kind of coming in through here, so this is awesome. Thank you guys for joining us on your Thanksgiving. Really enjoy that. What about yourself, Corey? What did you think of Kate's introduction and her as a character?
I loved that we have another character that's a bit of a fangirl, because the only other fangirl characters I know is Miss Marvel, fangirling about Captain America and the Avengers. So it was nice to see another sort of siphon for the viewer, right? Of like, hey, that could be me. I would probably react that way too, right? Except she's just way more talented, has a bigger skill set, way better with a bow and arrow. Like, I'm deadly with a bow and arrow, but not because I'm trying to be, because I'm probably aiming it in the wrong direction. She's deadly with a bow and arrow because she knows what she's doing, right? So, whole different ball game or arrow game. At first I wasn't sure, because sometimes she was doing things that I felt weren't quite intelligent. Like when she was having the conversation with Hawkeye and she's saying, no, nobody followed me. Of course nobody followed me. Oh, but I brought the dog home, right? And then the apartment's going into flames. But then I was thinking about previously, and we've seen her throughout the episode really do well thinking on her feet. So she might not have the background knowledge of, you know, how to deal with a mafia coming after her. So she's not making the greatest decisions because she's panicking and she's in the moment and trying to survive. But when she's put in different situations, like with the auction, I thought she handled that really well, with pretending to be the waiter and just going in. And then she didn't just pull the name of George out of a hat. Like, she heard that being said in the kitchen when she was walking through. So you can tell that she is really aware of her surroundings, and there's like there's a foundation for an Avenger there, because she's already got these sort of inclinations, right? So those things I was impressed with. She's good thinking on her feet. We know that she's a bit of a rebel and a troublemaker, which just helps with her being able to do things on the spur of the moment, because she's able to get out of trouble by thinking up a lie on the moment and not getting, you know, pulled into the principal's office, right? Which is what I was horrible at, because I could never think of anything on the fly. So yeah, so I wouldn't be a Kate Bishop in this scenario. But yeah, no, I liked what they did with her character. I was getting a bit of like Sky vibes from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like first season Skye.
Mhm.
Just with her real independence and, not wanting to be told what to do. But yeah, I mean, there are no complaints with how she's portraying the character. I liked the character. I like to see where she goes. Um, I thought it was sweet that, she's a huge fan of Hawkeye, and I like that one line where she's like, "Okay, just stay calm. Don't freak out. Hawkeye's in your apartment. It's all cool." Like she's trying to talk herself. It just made me laugh. So I'm like, yeah, that would probably be me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I gotta say, I think I fell in love with the character instantly. I love the opening establishing bit. The younger girl they have
Yeah.
playing the younger version of her was perfect. We had that nice long tracking shot as she's wandering through the house, slowly panicking, seeing, the aliens appearing around her and the Chitauri showing up. The fact that she becomes who she does, sold instantly. Her life is saved by a guy with a bow and arrow
Mhm.
who fights some guys off and then swings and disappears. Yeah, that's, of course, you're a kid, that's your instant hero. And
Mhm.
losing her dad, who, of course, they established being I will be the one here to protect you.
Yep.
Now she feels that's going to be her job. And it gives her a path. Yeah, the opening credits showing the whole evolution of her
Mhm.
character. Yeah, God, my God, what a brilliant way to introduce a character and sum up that whole evolution to where she is now. She's got skills, but they're not perfect. Her luck, maybe not the best. A little oversold, sure. Stain Tower. I don't know if everybody caught that for
Obadiah
Obadiah
Stane.
Stane. Love that little reference. Nice little moment.
Let the tower crash. It's fine. We don't care. I
Well, and it's also because Stain was kind of big, for a long time in comics versus Stark. You had Stain versus Stark and Stain International when he took over for a while. So it's really one of those established names that we don't see a whole lot. So the fact that we do have that little playback, and yes, it's the old decrepit falling apart, is kind of funny unto itself.
the other thing I loved was that she's a fighter right from the get-go. Like I love when her mom says, "I know I'll be here to protect you. I'll give you whatever it is you need." And I love that her line is, "I need a bow and arrow." Like not I need my dad back. I need a hug. It's like, no, I need a weapon and I need training and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, she is proactive, and that's
Yeah.
what gets her into trouble. And again, it's that nice progression. And you're right, I think with that holiday film vibe, it keeps that lightheartedness to the danger, but it's not perfect. Can she fight? Sure, but she can't handle a bunch of guys. Can she improvise on her feet? Sure, but not perfectly yet, and she's still going to get caught.
Yeah,
Can she
and
jump into
panic.
these things and follow that? Sure, but she can't totally do it perfect. So you get the evolution of character, like you mentioned, Rob.
Mhm.
You get to see where she's going to go. She's not there yet.
It reminded me a bit of the Spider-Man scene, like the scene where she locks herself in the car or the van, and the tracksuit mafia are trying to break in, and you can see she's now starting to panic. Really reminded me of the Spider-Man scene where he's crushed under the building, and he's like, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" Right, and then realizes he has to save himself. But where I like seeing those moments where characters are in over their head, especially younger
Mhm.
characters, and and again, we have Hawkeye to the rescue, which,
Yeah. Now, I can certainly, I think it was mentioned here in the chat that there's a little bit of Batman ripoff feel to it, as we have, a rich person that goes on for revenge, or, his costume, vigilante type kind of thing. Yeah, but that's also a repeating theme throughout all of the comics. And to me, it's not Batman. It's more of the trope of like, oh, and of course she's rich and her mom has a security company so she can get access to these things and she doesn't have to worry about a job. And yes, we could get into this if we wanted to nitpick. But all of that aside, it still works, and it's not the focus of what I have on the character. So I'm fine with those choices. I would like to see some heroes that aren't independently wealthy already in the future. But I'm good with this now.
We get all sorts of them. I mean, we get them all the time. Like the people that aren't wealthy. I mean, and people. There's some people that say like they want to make sense of all these things, and it's like, well, okay. First off, then tell me how a guy gets superpowers by getting bit by a spider. Tell me
Sure.
how you get powers from cosmic rays. It's all just movies and fun. And if you let yourself enjoy something, despite these nitpicks that you have, like why isn't Hawkeye in this? And just calm down. It's a TV show. It's on Disney Plus. What do you don't expect Citizen Kane here, folks? It's just fun costume superhero stuff. Okay, if you want something to make sense, go pick up a science book. All right, this is just fun TV nonsense.
Well, speaking of Clint not being in it much in the first episode, what did you think about our Clint Barton return here, and where he is now? Just for timeline wise, we're about 2 years post Endgame. I believe we're 2025, which is currently the furthest along the timeline that we have so far for the MCU. I think Eternals takes place around the same time as No Way Home, which is like 8 months after Endgame or something like that. So anyway, Clint now 2 years post Endgame. What did you think about how he was presented in this?
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you please.
I got distracted with Silva's comment down there about take that same advice for AOS season 5. Look, Silva, I actually am going to take that advice for season 5 of AOS. This is like I said, this show opened up a lot of different things. I've had a lot of things happen in the last couple of weeks to me and about my channel and all the things how I approach things. And this is how I'm going to be approaching things much more. If I have a problem with it though, still, it's going to be because I just don't like season 5 of AOS, not because of little nitpicks about like nerdy things that don't make sense. But anyway, Clint Barton. Well, everything that they did with Clint makes sense because he's playing it off really quiet. I love this. He's just done the whole thing with the hearing aid. Didn't know this was something that was affecting him, but like he's a regular guy. All the things that have happened, I'm surprised that there's not more things wrong with him.
Yeah.
And as much as I understood like what he was going through in that musical, and it wasn't just because that it's a musical and it was ridiculous. It was just him having to look at they fought and saved the world, and he's watching it play out on a stage and has to see his fallen comrades and remember all this stuff. And I'd have the hearing aid turned off too, to be honest with you. He's there for his kids anyway. I think this is what he thinks his kids would want, and his son says it best. Why is everybody singing and dancing and about everything? That's how I feel about every musical, kid. But the way he handles it all, and with his family, and it's clear what's important to him and what's always been important to him since the beginning. He is not that evolved. He's always just been the guy that's trying to do the right thing. He got in with these people. It became his life. He's got his family to prioritize now. And now with things slowing down for him, he has a better chance, except he still has to answer for his past and the things that led up to it. And that still has to remind him of the events of Endgame and losing that and feeling like he should have been the one to go because of everything he did. And he still just does it with like, just this, like that, like we say it, like a guy in a holiday movie that's like, okay. But he's been like that since the beginning. All right. And he just sucks it up and he goes. And he's the perfect, that's what makes him perfect for this. Like they really understand the tone of this character and what place he really needs to be in this, which is the guy who's just trying to do right by his family, and now he's having to do right by somebody else to make sure they don't get hurt. It's just what he does. And throughout this whole thing, though, there is still that very capable warrior that he can just switch on and off. Every move that he did, including the very end when, it's like, why would he get captured? Oh, because he wants to be. Like he pulled a Loki, it's the old, go right to where I need to be. If he wants to solve this problem quickly, that's how you get there. That's how he sees it in his head. The fastest way to get this over with is skip right to the end, right? Just take me to the villain. And I just love it. And also the relationship that he has with her it feels like, even though she's young, I feel like there's a lot of him in her, or like young him. Like he can be rolling his eyes and all that, but I have a feeling a lot of the same mistakes that she's making, he already made. And so Renner, who's not an overactor ever, I don't think I've ever seen him overact, is just so quietly understated in this, to her silly. He's playing the straight man without looking like a straight man to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm going to stop there because I think I want to hear more what you guys think.
Yeah. Well, here, let me jump in on that one. Because, yeah, the humanness really that he brings to it, the exhaustion of being one of the last surviving Avengers. He is the human. He wasn't the god. He's the guy with the bow and arrow. I don't even know what I'm doing here. None of this makes any sense from the big Ultron speech. He's got PTSD from his experiences. He's damaged body and soul. He just wants to put it all behind him.
Yeah. And everybody idolizes him and keeps bringing it up and wanting autographs.
Yeah, and he'd want nothing more than to put it completely in his past, which is why I think this is that perfect kind of passing of the torch, of seeing someone, like you said, Rob, that has a little bit of that younger you in them, that you can say maybe they can carry this on, or, well, they're going to just keep doing it. I might as well prepare them as best that I can. I think it's maybe more the direction they'll end up going with this. But yeah, just the simpleness of the fact that he's trying to just contain this little thing, this contagion before this gets out. The suit, this one place knows, can I get it back and quiet it down before other people find it, before other people start looking? Again, we can nitpick on is it very convenient that we were able to find this all intact underneath Avengers Tower and was just brought away, and then later on a LARPer would take a piece of evidence from an obvious crime scene and fire. But these things do happen, and we can go with that. But even his whole exhaustion with finding that, of like, okay, one more thing I've got to do. All right, I'm gonna get this one thing last done, and then I'm gone. It's just, he plays that so well. And you're right, the relationship not only with his kids, with his wife, the fact that he can break down and be like, okay, well, this is the plan. I almost got it. Oh, you're going to do a Nat would have a catch and release. Nat would have appreciated that. That's a good, where they can have that honesty in the relationship.
Yeah.
Which for someone who is so a spy and everything has to be quiet, this is the one person where everything is direct and open to, and you feel that humanity in with it. I think that's, again, for a holiday film, this is perfectly what you want. I want to get home to family and put all this past behind me. He really plays this part just perfectly well. You feel his exhaustion and his frustration with both the musical and the LARPing, and then dealing with a kid and the fact that, yeah, like you said, I got to get myself captured just so I can go talk to their boss. Let's get it done.
Yep. When he's like putting his forehead against the windshield, he's just like, oh, in the back. It's okay, Clint. It's okay.
We feel your pain. But yeah, Corey, what about you? What's your thoughts there on Clint's journey so far?
I was watching some of the other reviews, and one of the videos, I don't remember which one, the reviewer had mentioned that Clint, at his core, he's the guy who's honest, reliable, down to earth. He's the guy that's going to pick you up at the airport when your flight comes in at 6 a.m. in the morning. You know, he's a great dad. He's a great husband. You know, there's nothing flashy about him, but everything that's normal about him isn't really normal. He's like the Captain America of the regular dudes. You know? Mm-hmm. He's the person who's just reliable and faithful and consistent, and he's gonna have your back no matter what. And you know, if you're a random teenager that gets into something over her head, he's not gonna leave you there to get murdered. He's like, oh, fine, I'll be home in 2 days. Like, I gotta deal with this kid, right? So, and I think that's what makes him so special as a character and so beloved. I mean, that's why I love him as a character. I mean, he does all these cool things, but really for me, it's who he is as a character, his heart and the goodness of him. You know, he's the guy I'd want in my corner. You know, if I'm in an alleyway, it's looking sketchy, he's the guy I'd want. The other thing I loved was that we see, like you had said before, two different sides of him. We see that he can go full on warrior mode and be terrifying and murdering people left, right, and center. We've seen that with the Ronin side. But we also see that he is so much a dad. Like, if there's ever a kid in the situation, he immediately flips to dad mode and he's like doing all the dad things. So he did it with Wanda, with that whole speech that we talked about, where he's like, it's a bow and arrow, the place is flying, I don't know, you know, but if you want to go out there, you're an Avenger, I'll dub you, and now let's go, right? And he does the same thing with Kate. You know, as soon as he knows, oh my word, you're a kid, okay, fine, come with me, like, here's a jacket, no, don't look, keep down, like, don't, you know, he's totally going into protective dad mode. And we see it with his family as well. Like, he hates that musical, but he's going to it for his kids. And then when they go for Chinese, you know, he's asking them, we're going to have the best Christmas ever. What do you want to do? We're going to make gingerbread. We're going to do a movie marathon, ugly sweaters, decorate the tree. Like, he's 150% into doing the Christmas thing with his kids. And I just loved seeing that part of him, because we don't really see a superhero dad in the Avengers. I mean, Nat's a little bit of a maternal figure in the sense that she's an aunt to Clint's kids, but that's all. Like, we don't, everybody else is a fighter. Everybody else is, you know, the superhero gig. Nobody's going home after they've been beat up and changing diapers and bottle feeding and up till 3. And Clint's the guy that's doing that. And so I just like the normalcy of that, and the fact that they're rewarding him for just being a good dad and being a good guy.
Right.
And he doesn't have, you know, Cap's superhero serum. He's just a regular guy that's constantly getting beat up, and, you know, he's got frozen peas on his head, and he's got a broken, you know. So, yeah.
And he just wants to be home for the holidays.
He just let him get home for Christmas.
It's all that we want.
And he makes the promise to his daughter, right? So you know that's the modus operandi. That's the end game for this.
Yeah, you know, there's Christmas songs that are ending this show by far.
I'll be home for Christmas.
Okay, so these are, of course, our big main characters, but not the only ones. We do have a couple of major kind of supporting characters. We're just going to hit on the top one. No, we're not going to talk about Pizza Dog. Pizza Dog's a dog. He's cute. He looks great. He eats pizza. Okay, that's all we need to talk about Pizza Dog, in case anybody else needs to throw in. Yeah.
Veterinary alert. Don't feed your dogs pizza.
There's a lot of stuff, onions, things, not good for the dogs. But let's talk about Eleanor. Let's talk about Mama Bishop, because look, she's great, wonderful character, wonderful actress. If I was throwing out my guesses after this episode, she's the villain. Yeah, what happened to the dad? I don't know. There was some money lost before, and then suddenly everything was better, and now there seems to be some other money issues, but not. Was she the one secretly behind the black market, and we're showing it off to Tony and the Armands? I don't know. I'm just saying it's all a little too convenient. I just had to throw that out before we got in any more. I think she was the villain, or she would be if we didn't have some more actual Marvel villains that we could get into, particularly Jack, which we'll get into in a minute. But or we can go into both of those. What do you think about our supporting characters, our kind of bishop parents? We've gone into Clint's family. Let's talk a little bit about Kate's family and family to be. Rob, let's start off with you on this one. What's your thoughts of Eleanor? And if you want to jump into Jack and your suspicions there, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think one of the things that this show is already doing great is keeping you guessing on these things. Whether we're talking about the dad, no body, there's no body, there's no death, right? I mean, sure, if we over speculate, we always end up being wrong.
That's very true.
Most of the time, we end up being wrong with these shows, right? They always fool us, except for leaks that get out occasionally. But Vera Farmiga, who has just been blowing my mind since I want to say, I want to go back to The Departed.
No, yeah.
That's 2007 around there. And then, playing Mama Bates on Bates Motel, which is whatever you think it is. She was fantastic on it. So playing just a mom, and that there has to be more to it than that. She wouldn't just be cast in the mom role. She is a bigger than life personality. Her characters are always complex and they always have more going on than they appear. So we already know that she had something going on with Armand Sr. Was he Armand the Third, I think?
It's Armand the Third, yeah.
Yeah. He is the one, we don't really have any time to talk about him, but him bringing up what he thinks of her, but still being nice, and how he thinks his son is getting the raw deal here says a lot, because I think Armand is a pretty bad guy probably underneath, these things.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're going at each other, it's just about who's going to be the worst person, because I think they're all bad, right? So who's going to be the one that ends up on top? And for me, I don't know enough right now to say for sure, but I my mind wants to go right where yours went, where she's the villain. And you could very well be right about that, because it's also really easy to say that Jack, played by Tony Dalton, is going to be the villain because he's going to be the swordsman, and the swordsman is one of the Avengers' oldest villains. Yes. He has been back and forth in the comics, working with them sometimes, being the guy. He's like the Krychek, right? The guy who can play both sides of everything, always trying to end up on top, right? Plus, when you get Tony Dalton playing him, and if you know Better Call Saul, like I know Darren does, this guy is smiling the whole time, and then the next second he is beating you to death. He gets you with the charm, he lures you in, he gets you with the smile and all of it, and he is doing all of those tricks here in this show. That sword scene, when and both of those actors in that scene, her knowing that he's full of it just with the way he's fencing her, and him giving her nothing no matter what, never breaking that. What are you talking? It is, they cast this guy perfectly. But again, he's so perfect at it that it makes you go, oh boy, it really feels like it's just too obvious. Like when she finds out that the tracksuit mafia are called the tracksuit mafia, and she goes, that's a little on the nose. I think swordsman is a little too on the nose here too. So I do think that you're on the right track, but it's just about which bad guy is the worst bad guy. And we're only 2 episodes in. So a couple episodes from now, we could find an even worse guy,
Oh, by far.
There's going to be more and more villains, I think, as this show goes on. So, yeah, well, we can get to that one later, but Ronin killed a lot of crime people. There is probably a power vacuum in New York City right now. So who knows who will fill that role? Maybe this show will help kill off a bunch of bad guys so that some other really bad guy can finally take the power back in New York. I don't know. But I think that both these actors really brought it home. And again, I'll also be really honest and say when I saw that it was Tony Dalton, as much as I like him on Better Call Saul, I wasn't convinced at first that he would be good on this show, that he would fit. I was like, I don't know. And then once he turned on the charm, I went, oh, that's why. And then I was fine with the rest of it. So, Corey, you can take the reins from here on out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, originally when I first saw the episode, I thought the mom was great and Jack was probably behind it because I was like picking up all the clues. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, those clues are a little bit too obvious. Maybe someone's trying to set him up. Maybe somebody got that sword from him and used it or whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm leaning more towards the mom being the villain. One thing that was interesting is that at the very beginning of episode 1, when they're having the argument, the mother and father, and they realize that Kate's listening in on their conversation, he says, "Do you want me to go or you?" And then she replies to him something like, "Oh, we both know who's going to go." And to me, that could have implied that Kate really didn't have a good relationship with her mother at that point. Like she trusted her father more. She was closer with her father. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That also could put the mother in like a questionable light if we're looking at murder charges here. Yeah, but I mean, the mother also had a lot of the same skill sets that Kate had. We know that she was overseeing Kate's training because in all of the little icon imagery things in the beginning of the episode, the mom is always there in the background when she's training and doing her archery. And we also see some pictures in Kate's room where it's a woman, she's standing like on her head, like on a handstand, but obviously it isn't Kate. So I'm assuming that's Kate's mother. And then she did that trick where she's like, your mom's pretty cool too. And she threw the food up and caught it. So we know she has like dexterity. We know that she's super flexible. And so I'm wondering, like, is she a lot more than what we think she is? Like maybe she's like Kate, but times 10 in terms of skill set and really, yeah. So that's all I really have.
Well, yeah, and if we want to talk real character motivation, if you find out that your parent is a villain and may or may not be responsible for your dad's death, you have that I have to make things up and protect. I mean, you could go that direction. Mm-hmm. Rob's right. Whenever we speculate, we're almost always wrong. But I would just say the way that it's done, yeah, obviously, Jack is the villain. But is he the fall guy villain for someone else?
Yeah.
And is that she's behind it? It just feels like one of those turnaround type things. But yeah, I mean, Marvel is so good at picking the right actors for these roles because Jack's awesome and he's slimy and he's purposely slimy and charming. And you're like, why are people falling for this? And yet you could, of course, see why people would fall for it. It's a wonderful sort of blend.
And what does that say about the fact that the mother is marrying him? Like, so what kind of a person is she that she's like, is she just marrying him so he can be the fall guy so she can have another dead husband so she can inherit some more money and get rid of problems in the,
Well, is that it? Is she doing this in order to get money? And is that what Armand III was concerned about? Here, as we dive into more speculation. That wasn't for at least another 5 minutes before we get into speculation.
Okay.
But no, seriously. Let's see. No, we want to talk about like favorite moments, but let's let's cover the LARPing scene really bit, because to me it was the second of the two most painful scenes in the show so far, and
Ugh.
perfectly intentionally so. The musical, I felt Clint's pain from beginning to end, plus the PTSD and all the layers within it of why he would want to leave that. The LARPing, exactly the same thing, why he doesn't want to be there. The frustration. I've gone up against Thanos. Fine. I mean, it's just and for people who have role played tabletop or LARP, there is always a certain nerd fondness to any of these scenes. I'm personally a tabletop D&D player, never really did the LARPing type of thing, so I feel fine making fun of these people. Is that just cosplay? Wait a minute, let me amend my statement. Corey, let's kick this off with you. What did you think of our LARPing scene and just that whole little bit?
I totally felt Clint's frustration. And I think it was even more frustrating when you find out everybody there is like first responders, police officers, firefighters. So he can't like punch somebody in the face and just like go over and grab the thing, because then he'll be arrested. And so he's really limited in what he can do, and it's all legalistic limitations. It's all like red tape limitations, which is the worst kind. And he's had a long day. He just wants to get this stupid suit and get out of there and go home. And he's being forced to play by their rules to get what he wants. So I understood the frustration. And also for a guy that is an expert swordsman, an expert archer, an expert warrior, and now he's surrounded by all these people who are like, ching, 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 aha, I got you. Like, it's painful and it's horrible, but it's also hilarious. But it was like, of course they're going to do this to Clint, because their whole modus operandi for this entire TV series is, let's put Clint in the most awkward and horrible situations he can possibly be in for comedic purposes, and then see how he deals with it and gets out of it. And yeah, it just the armor that he had to wear, which looked like something that a child had put together. And I mean, the only part that I kind of warmed up to a bit, when I was like, oh, okay, that's cute, was when he actually meets that firefighter and the guy tells him, this is the closest thing I'm going to ever get to being an Avenger or a superhero. Like, come on, dude, just like play dead just this once. Come on, and it's kind of sweet, because it lets Clint see, okay, this is how people see me. But it's also, I'm one out of a million people on this planet, or bazillion or whatever, that actually gets to do the job that I'm doing. And as much as it sucks every day, and as much as I have PTSD from it, like, it's also pretty amazing that this is what I get to do. And so many people wish they could do what I'm doing. So that little moment, and then the fact that he's so grateful that Clint just played along with him, which kind of, to me, it felt almost like he was doing another dad thing, like almost like he had the kids, and the kids were like, come on, Dad, play pretend with us, come on. He's like, oh no, not again. Fine, I'll play with you, right? Like he's going into dad mode almost again. And then the character, the firefighter, says, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. And so I'm like, oh, that's going to pay off later on in the season. Something's going to happen, and that firefighter is going to do something that Clint will need help, he'll be stuck somewhere, and maybe his team's the firefighting team that shows up to get him out of something, and he'll be like, oh, I got to rescue Hawkeye. And he's like, call me Clint.
Yes, but also
I'm hoping
using Spider-Man it, because that would be horrible. Yeah, it's a tough. I like the idea where you're going out, but that's a tough line to walk right there.
So we'll see. I don't know, but I mean, why would they put that into the storyline without paying it off in some way, right? Whether or not that means this guy's going to end up dead, I don't know. Apparently, his character in the comics dies. There's a character named, was it Gil or Griff or that in the comics dies.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that would be kind of a bummer. No, I'm depressed, man. No, I'm kidding. Rob, what about you? Your thoughts on our LARPing scene? And
I just laughed. I mean, what, you can either cry or laugh, so I'm like, I'll laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so bad, it's good.
Like the musical scene, I had to really rewire my brain for those two scenes, because I know it's supposed to be cringy for everyone, but it just felt like, oh, this is gonna be a thing now, isn't it? There's somebody's gonna make this now, and it's gonna be everywhere, and I don't want that.
Oh no!
But
you don't want to see the musical? I'll go see the musical.
No, I hate musicals. But I realize again, Clint's the Steve Martin to Hailee Steinfeld's John Candy. He's just trying to get home, and John Candy is there to get in the way of everything and slow everything down. So you get these scenes that in a holiday movie, the Steve Martin type character would have to deal with, whether it's a terrible musical or going to a LARPing festival to get something that should be really simple. Should be able to walk right over there and get it. So, but how do you write that scene for a superhero and not a regular guy? Because I had to put it like that in my head, because I'm like, if that's me and she says I can't go over there, in reality, I would laugh in her face and then walk over there and tell the guy to take the suit off. I would have me, the person saying this right now, would have no problem doing that. But the superhero, when everybody
knows who he is.
He can't just do that. He can, but then he knows that this is just going to take longer and longer. And once I got my head there, past just knock all these nerds out, I thought it was really, really funny. And again, I think Corey's right. They are going to keep doing this throughout the series, where he is going to be in situations that are going to feel like these holiday movie situations that are just another obstacle to, say, us, is going to be amplified for a hero, because he has to act like a hero in a situation that he wants to be a human.
Yeah.
Right? Because Clint wants to just go and take it. The guy wants to take it. The hero has to play by the rules.
I love the ultimatum that he gives him. He's like, okay, so either I can fake kill you and steal this from you, or I can really punch you and take it.
Yep. He lays it out. He gives them both, because he wants to just do this fast thing. And I thought it was fine. And it's, like, just even talking about this, like, we've also got the topic of, like, talking about our favorite moments. And really, we've already covered pretty much everything as it is. Mm-hmm. And with this, it was just like, the more I see it now, the more I enjoy it. Because the first time, like I said, I was cringing pretty hard. Yeah. But I'm glad I've had a couple of days to think on it, since I watched this at 2 a.m. on Wednesday. So I've had about 48 hours to live with this, and it's fine. And it's preparing me for more to come.
I would have been fine if they had cut out the LARPing scene. Like, I'm not lamenting over anything in that scene that was removed. I would have probably preferred it without the LARPing scene. That was a little too cringy for me. But
yeah,
the musical, I mean, I had to remind myself that the Broadway show isn't just the Avengers. It's actually Captain America, like his story.
That's another reason why I got bothered. Because it was like, you're kind of making me not like Steve Rogers a little bit here, Marvel.
Oh, well, and Ant-Man, who wasn't even there.
But they're paying homage to the first film where Steve was doing shows for raising money for war bonds, right? So that's kind of a neat twist. What is it? Someone had a question. They wanted to know if if I thought that Peggy Carter would have been in the Rogers musical, since it's about Rogers' life, probably, like at the very beginning.
Yeah, they would have
That
had
would be
that
cool.
in the early part. Yeah, I gotta say the second LARPing fight, I would have been fine. To me, that was the cringiest part. Him walking through in slow motion and kind of like just, all right, I'm here, and just mowing through a crowd because he's like, they don't have no idea what they're doing. It's like splish and you're dead, and splash and you're dead, and I would move you all. And that was kind of just a fun little moment of just like, and I'm through this. Okay, now back to
Yeah.
reality. Get the suit and go.
It's
It
like
was,
an expert chess player playing against a 2-year-old. Like,
yeah.
okay, done. Let's go.
All right. Well, we were talking about favorite moments. I think you're right, Rob. I think we hit all of that. We're getting late, and there are at least two things that I do want to touch on before we wrap up. So let's talk about our outro. Let's talk about our catch and release gone wrong. Clint trying to meet the head of the tracksuit mafia. Hailee, Kate showing up, trying to save him, and of course failing miserably. Not quite there on the hero bit, but
They
we
have guns.
do get our brief introduction to our leader of the tracksuit mafia, and as Rob indicated, is somebody from the comics who there's been a lot of expectation coming into, and we're talking about Echo. So let's get into that. Rob, what were your thoughts on our introduction to this character, and especially again as that the kind of cliffhangers to wait into the next episode that we really have to get there? What were your thoughts going in for the character, and then how it was brought up?
I honestly didn't know that that's where we were, like, that this was going to be the introduction of that character. While over the 2 episodes, I had kind of forgotten that this character was even happening, because this character's not been on my radar, like, at all. I know of this character. I know she's mostly she was like introduced in Daredevil. And I knew that the character was like deaf. So you've got Daredevil who's blind, you've got Echo who's deaf. So it's a pretty cool match for that character to have another kind of disabled kind of situation. It makes for an interesting comic anyway.
Mm-hmm.
What I found most interesting was I didn't know that the actress was actually deaf in real
And an
life. So
amputee.
that is, to me, the coolest part of her introduction was that, again, like we talk about casting, is they didn't just get somebody to pretend to be deaf. They've got somebody who knows how to do it. It's not just somebody who's, let's say, trained with people who, like that helps people that have that, that are deaf. They found somebody who's an actor who can do this. And I really liked that aspect of it going forward, because that's a challenge in itself, man. And I can't wait to see what this person does. Because just that brief introduction is great for the fans of this character. But since I don't really know the character that well, and wow, this show is really nailing characters I don't know for a change. Like normally, like I said, I'm all over it, but like even Swordsman, I don't know. I know of him, but I don't know anything really about him other than the highlights. So I'm just more excited to see where they're going to go with it and what this means. Because again, I think that we're just going to keep getting villain after villain after villain. So if we've got Eleanor and Jack and now Echo, who's next? And that's where I'm thinking about it anyways.
Excellent. Corey, what about yourself? Did you have any expectations going in? Was this just a who is this at the end, or where were you at with this?
Yeah, I didn't have any expectations, and I wasn't familiar, like Rob, I really wasn't familiar with the character at all. At first I didn't even know what she was doing. I'm like, why is she got her hands against the speakers? And then I realized, like, oh, she's deaf. Okay. And apparently, yeah, as you were saying, the actress herself is deaf, and I think an amputee as well. I was looking it up. Anyway, don't quote me on that if that's wrong. I did some brief, very quick
Oh,
research.
shoot. I was just tweeting that. Sorry, Corey.
It's all over now.
But yeah, so she found out about the audition through friends, and she was just working a regular 9-to-5 job, and they were looking specifically for someone who was deaf and had certain skill sets, and she booked the gig. So I'm quite interested to see where she will go with this. In the last year or so, we've seen a lot of actors and actresses come to the forefront in Hollywood that have certain disabilities, and they're not, being hired per se because of that. They're actually starting to get roles that aren't connected with their disability. There was one actress who was in a wheelchair, and I know she was in like a rom-com, and now she's doing other work as well. And like originally she was hired because they needed a character that was in a wheelchair, and now it's like she's just being hired for a role regardless of whether she's in a wheelchair or not, which I really like seeing that now in Hollywood, where we aren't just looking for, we need a deaf actress or we need a paraplegic. It's like we have an open role for the female lead. You can audition for it regardless of what is your.
Well, it's nice that these are opening the doors for incredible actors and actresses, performers who have these skill set but don't get the opportunities because they might have these disabilities or perceived, especially in Hollywood, if it's not a particular type, then it's a disability. And now getting the chance to, let's hire this person, they actually do have something to bring up. Yes, now they can maintain. You may get in the door because of that particular, you fit in a slot. Doors only keep opening up if you bring in the skills to back that up.
Exactly. So like the first step is getting cast because of your disability. The next step up is just getting cast regardless. Like that's where I want us to go. But the fact that this is happening more often and it's becoming normalized, I love that. I think that's great. The thing that I really liked about the using of sign language, we also see Clint's son signing as well to Clint. And so to me at first I was like, wait, is Nathaniel, because this is a little baby that Nat had on her phone, and she's like, oh, he's fat. And then, that was her response. She's not like, oh, cute, right? But it was supposed to be Nathaniel, or it was supposed to be Natalia, and it was a boy. And so he's grown up. But he's using sign language. And so my first question was, wait, is he deaf? And I'm like, no, that can't be, because they were having conversations during the dinner scene, and he was responding quickly to auditory questions, right? So that's not it. And then I started thinking, well, does this mean that Clint is eventually going to go deaf? So like, is he learning sign? Is the family learning sign? Like, what's going on here? So that was just a question that wasn't really answered. And
but I think it was a simple way, because sometimes kids just learn stuff because they get interested. I liked sign language when I was a kid because I could spell fart with my hands in the backyard and not annoy my mom, so my brother and I could do those messages. Very childish. So sometimes kids just get into it, but it does give a nice connection that we can see, is that Clint will be able to communicate with Echo, when they come in a way that, not just lip reading or anything like that, which might be kind of a cool little bit. Again, also much like Kate and these newer generation of characters, not somebody that I am familiar with all that much. I like that Marvel is diving into its character roster, and because this is MCU and Feige and all official large stuff, these are characters that we can see pop up in other shows and have those reoccurring heroes, villains, interactive characters, over multiple shows, which is part of the great thing about the comics, is re-seeing these characters again and again. Oh, they fought Hawkeye. Oh, now and here he is fighting Elena, and here he is down the road, maybe fighting Miss Marvel. This is just kind of a fun thing for the audience. So that's mostly where my excitement, I think, came in from seeing this, because I don't have any baggage to bring in on comparing the character.
One speculation that I had seen in a review is someone had mentioned that when we first meet Echo, the lighting in the room is red.
Mhm.
And so they were wondering, is this a literal red room? And does she have any connection with the Black Widow program?
Oh,
Now, that might just be way crazy out there.
Yeah, I think it's that. It's more, I think it would be more of the Daredevil connection that Robin mentioned, is this is kind of where the character came through, which is the only other speculation. There's been a lot of fan of the Netflix shows, and those characters may be returning in like a soft reboot way or an acknowledgement or not. Officially, we don't know anything. I know there's some certain expectations possibly with this show, which gets me excited because I love the whole cast for the Netflix Daredevil series. So if we can get Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Deborah Ann Wall, any of those people in, I would personally be excited. I know not everybody's necessarily on that page.
Rob is breaking down here.
No, it's just because I just was like, I was trying to figure out how to work this in, and I just figured it out, and it made me laugh. The red, it doesn't mean the red room. The red's for Mephisto because he's red.
Or Wanda.
Right there. There we go.
It's gonna be
Vision.
Mephisto now. Yeah,
it's the multiverse of madness connection none of you expected to see.
It's just the madness connection. We've all gone mad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my one Mephisto prediction per series.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Okay, I think that is the perfect place to wrap things up right there. I can't see going on any further on this.
Go book your tickets for Rogers the Musical now.
So, yes, you will, of course, be with us over the next 5 weeks as we cover this series. Interesting. Hawkeye has 5 nights. We have 5 nights of reviews, 1 day per episode. Does that mean 5 numerology? I don't know. Something else? I'm excited. But yes, you'll be catching us here, and then we will be moving right into Book of Boba Fett coverage right after that. So it's going to be Thursdays going on through February at least. Lots of stuff going on. But Corrie, why don't you let people know where they can find you? And of course, she will be joining us most likely in our final episode to wrap up the series with us as well. But Corrie, let people know where they can find you and what you're doing.
Well, you can find me on Dee's channel doing all these cool reviews, which thanks for inviting me all the time. I love being part of your group. And you can also find me on my webpage, Literature with Charm, or you can search for me on online for my author page, which is my name, C.L. Shoemaker, like the elves and the shoemakers. And I'm also on YouTube at Soothing Scriptures or at Biblical Bliss. So any of those 4 areas, you can find me.
Excellent. And Rob with Smirking Reviews. Sorry, folks, it'll take me just a little bit to get used to the new name here. Rob, what about yourself outside of being with me for the next 6 weeks and another 8 weeks? How many episodes? A couple of months, Thursdays right here. It's going to be a nice run. What else you doing? Where can people find you?
Trust me, I keep almost saying Smirking Gun still. So, well, you can find me on my channel that is Smirking Reviews now. The old channel, it's still the same, just with we're trying a different style. Trying to change things up a little bit, trying to play the YouTube game a little bit more on the main channel where you can see me talk about the Wheel of Time, Cowboy Bebop, and other fun things. But then we have the secondary channels. And the reason there's no content on there is because I'm trying to get everything to be the way I want it to be before I start putting stuff out. But Smirking Reviews Classics is where you can see the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Leftovers, Doctor Who, and Rob's Never Seens, stuff like that. Any kind of theme stuff that's long form and me off the hook and not playing the YouTube game. And then on Smirking Reviews Comics, we're over there. We'll be discussing comic book stuff, anything Marvel or DC, show related, movie related, or comic related will be over on that channel. And again, I'm not playing the YouTube game on those 2 channels, so expect me to be how I am, how you've seen me before in the past, and just a little slightly censored version of me on the main channel, just so I can I don't know what I'm trying to say, but that's where I am. Also on Twitch. I'm still on Twitch at RF Stone. Haven't been on there too much lately, but that's where you can occasionally glimpse me. And on Twitter, I'm at reviews_gun.
Excellent. Want a big thanks, Silver Surfer, The Rich Room, Mark from Enchantment of Eternity, everybody who joined us live.
Wes.
I know I'm missing people. Wes Sager, always jumping in. Always good seeing you there, Wes.
Sabaro, Silver Surfer.
Sabaro, yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us live. Thank you, everybody who's joining us in the archives. Like I said, we're going to be here through the run of the show, and then we will be doing the Book of Boba Fett immediately following that. Next week, we get kind of a preview of that, as Don Willie will be our guest here for our Hawkeye review. And if you're big sci-fi fans, you're going to catch me over on Mark's channel, Enchantment of Eternity. As soon as the Expanse drop, I'll be joining him on Saturdays to discuss that season as it comes out. So a lot of stuff happening over the next couple of months. We look forward to seeing you both live in the chat and in the archives. Please leave a like, please subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So thanks so much. We're out of here. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Subscribe.